If you'd asked me a year ago what the most confusing moment of my life would be, I never would have guessed it would happen on the court, under the buzz of flickering gym lights, with the smell of sweat still clinging to my skin and a basketball cooling under my arm. But it did. And it all started with one sentence. "Tyler, stay back a minute." Coach West's voice was calm, almost casual, but something about it made my stomach drop. I turned just as the rest of the team was filing out, cracking jokes, slinging towels over their shoulders. Nobody paid us any attention. Nobody ever did. "Sure," I said, and jogged toward him, my sneakers squeaking against the hardwood. He stood by the double doors of the gym, clipboard in one hand, the other fiddling with the whistle around his neck. He looked like he always did, focused, unreadable, intense in that quiet way that made people either fear him or respect him, or both. And then, after the last pair of sneakers echoed into silence down the hallway, he stepped back and, click, he locked the door behind me, let me back up. I play for a mid-sized college team in North Carolina, not Division I or anything flashy, but decent. Enough to keep a scholarship and make my parents think I'm on a real path. I'm a solid point guard, fast, focused, unproblematic, and very much closeted. Not because I was ashamed or anything like that, I just didn't want the drama. The locker room isn't exactly the kind of place where you test the waters, especially not with someone like Coach West around. He wasn't homophobic or anything, at least not openly, but he was intimidating as hell, tall, built like an ex-Marine because he actually was one, and intense. He kept things strictly professional. Nobody joked with him. Nobody got too comfortable. So why he locked that door behind us that night, I didn't know. He turned to face me and motioned toward the bleachers. "Sit," I did. My thighs were still burning from drills, and I dropped the basketball at my feet, waiting for him to start ripping into me about my footwork or my lazy passes in the second half of practice. But instead, he sat next to me. Not across, not standing above, right beside me. Close enough that I could smell the fabric of his sweatshirt, faint laundry detergent, and the musk of sweat. His leg pressed against mine, just slightly. And I realized he still hadn't said anything, so I filled the silence. "Look, I know I messed up on that last drill. That's not why I asked you to stay," he said, interrupting. His tone wasn't sharp, it was quiet, measured. That made it worse. I blinked. "Oh, then what's up?" He turned his head. And for the first time since I had known him, Coach West looked at me. Not the way a coach sizes up a player, not the way a teacher checks in on a student, but like a man seeing another man. It rattled me more than I'd ever admit. "I've been watching you," he said, and that's when my heart jumped. "I mean on the court?" he added, but his voice faltered, just a little. "Off it too." I swallowed. "Okay." There was a pause. He reached up and scratched the back of his neck, a rare break in his usual control. "I know you think you're good at hiding it," he said, eyes back on the court now. I froze, my entire body locked up. "What?" He didn't repeat himself. Just let the silence do the talking. I don't know what you mean," I said, but it came out way too fast. Too rehearsed. He nodded, not looking at me. "I used to say that too, back when I played." My brain short-circuited. "Wait, what?" He finally turned toward me, eyes steady. "You're not the only one who's ever had to pretend." And just like that, I felt the air in the gym shift. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't move. I just stared down at the basketball between my feet, as if it might offer me some kind of escape. "I'm not gonna ask you to say anything you don't want to," he said. "But I've been where you are, Tyler." He paused, and then he added, even softer, "And I know how hard it is." I nodded, slowly. My hands were shaking, just a little. "I'm not trying to get you in trouble," he said. "I'm just letting you know you're not alone." That's when I finally looked at him. And in his eyes, I saw it. That same tension, that same fear I carried, but also something else. Something I hadn't expected. Desire. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at him, my mouth slightly open, heartbeat thudding loud in my chest. Coach West wasn't even looking at me anymore. His eyes were somewhere on the empty court, distant, like he was lost in something only he could see. But his thigh was still pressed against mine. That small, steady contact was the only thing anchoring me. "I didn't come out until I was 29, he said after a moment. "I was done playing, halfway through the Marines, and still lying to myself. Thought it was safer that way. Cleaner, easier." He let out a soft laugh. It was dry, sad almost. "But it wasn't," he added. I swallowed. "You don't seem like someone who would have struggled with that." His eyes flicked back to me. Because I looked like I'd punched my feelings instead of feeling them? That made me smile, barely. "A little bit, yeah." He smirked, just faintly. "Everyone's got a mask, Tyler. Even you." My throat tightened. I wanted to say something, anything, but every word I could think of felt too risky, too raw, too real. Then Coach leaned forward, elbows on his knees again, hands clasped. "I've been watching the way you keep your distance from the guys," he said. "How you dodge locker room talk. Never bring up dates. Always polite, always low-key." My stomach twisted. "Trust me, I'm not here to call you out," he added quickly. "I'm not trying to corner you or make you explain yourself." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "I just wanted you to know, you don't have to hide with me." The gym felt huge and small, all at once. The overhead lights buzzed faintly. The ball between my feet was still. And then I whispered, "I didn't think anyone noticed." He nodded. "We always think that." Another pause. Then, even softer, he added, "But I did." The silence between us swelled again. Not awkward, just heavy. Full of things we weren't saying. And then Coach West did something I never expected. He reached over, slowly, and placed his hand on top of mine, just like that. No warning, no hesitation, just this big, calloused, warm hand on mine, solid, grounding. I tensed instinctively, but I didn't pull away. Neither did he. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Yeah, I know." He didn't move his hand, and I didn't ask him to. "I don't know what this is," I admitted. "It doesn't have to be anything," he said. "But I needed you to know I see you." My chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt in a long time, like something cracked open inside me. For a second, I wanted to cry. For all the months I'd kept quiet. All the moments I told myself to play it cool. All the times I avoided mirrors because I didn't want to look too closely at the guy staring back. But then I looked at Coach, and I saw someone who had made it to the other side of all that. And it made me feel less alone. He finally pulled his hand back, slow and respectful. "We should go," he said softly. But I didn't move. Neither did he. And that's when I asked the question that had been burning in my throat the entire time. "Why now?" He tilted his head. "Why tell you?" I nodded. Coach West took a breath. "Because," he said, "when I was your age, no one ever said it to me. And I needed someone to." I felt my lips part, but no words came out, just a shaky breath. "Okay," I finally whispered. And then, in the silence that followed, I did something I'd never done before. Not with anyone. I leaned in. It was small, subtle, barely even a movement. But I leaned in, just enough that our shoulders touched again. And this time, he didn't move away. We didn't say anything for a while. There was this strange calm in the gym, like we were suspended in time. Me sitting there with my shoulder resting lightly against his, the air still heavy from practice, the smell of rubber and wood and sweat all around us. Coach didn't move, and neither did I. Eventually, he exhaled and stood up slowly. I thought that would be it. He'd brush it off, unlock the door, and we'd pretend it never happened. But instead, he turned and looked at me again. Not with hesitation, with intention. "You want to shoot around a little?" he asked. "Just you and me?" I blinked. "Now?" He shrugged. "Why not? No one's kicking us out." I looked around the gym, at the silent bleachers, the scoreboard frozen at 0-100. "Sure," I said, standing. "Why not?" We walked over to the rack of balls near the sideline. I grabbed one, and he grabbed another. We didn't speak at first, just started shooting around. Simple mid-range shots, passes, layups. It felt normal, familiar, comforting. But there was an undercurrent to everything now. Every look, every slight smile. When our fingers brushed during a pass, he didn't pull away. At one point, I missed an easy jumper, and he rebounded it, tossing it back with a grin. "Where's that form I'm always bragging about to the scouts?" I rolled my eyes, laughing. "Guess it disappears when you drop a bomb on someone in the bleachers," he smirked. "Yeah, well, you're still holding your elbow too tight." I watched him demonstrate, mimicking my shot. His form was perfect, smooth, confident. "Show off," I muttered. He raised an eyebrow. "You want me to stop coaching now?" "No," I said, a little too quickly. "Not that part." He paused at that. Just for a second. Then he walked toward me, slowly, spinning the ball in his hands. "You're not just good, Tyler. You're special. I've known that since day one." He stopped in front of me, close. Close enough to smell the sweat dried on his skin, the clean laundry scent buried beneath it. "But you don't believe that yet," he added, softer. "I'm working on it," I said, quieter still. He nodded, like he understood. "Takes time." Then, without warning, he reached out and tucked a loose curl behind my ear. It was so small, so brief, but it made every hair on my body stand up. "I wasn't planning on any of this," he said. "Me neither. He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the high windows. "I guess I saw too much of myself in you." That silence came back, but it wasn't awkward. It was charged. "Coach," I said, "can I ask you something?" "Yeah. Are you with anyone?" His lips twitched. "No," I nodded. "Okay." He waited, then asked gently, "You?" I shook my head. "No, not even close." He gave the smallest smile. "All right," he said, stepping back slightly. "Then let's keep it that way for tonight." I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" "No labels, no expectations," he said. "Just two people being real for once." I didn't say anything, but I didn't disagree either. He nodded again, like that was the answer he expected. Then he picked up the ball and tossed it toward me. "Free throw contest. Loser runs suicides." I caught it with a grin. "You serious?" "Always." We shot for the next 20 minutes, trading jabs, laughing more than we had any right to after such a heavy conversation. I felt lighter, looser. I wasn't worried about how I looked or what anyone would say. It was just us. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared. We were both out of breath by the time we finally gave up on the free throw contest. "I win," I panted, tossing the ball into the corner. "You made 5 out of 10, he said, hands on his hips. "I made 6. "Yeah, but I had more style." He gave me a look. "You tripped over your own foot." "I slipped," I said, grinning. He shook his head, but I saw the smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. It wasn't the usual half smirk he gave during practice when someone finally nailed a drill. It was relaxed, real. There was a different kind of energy in the gym now. Not the sharp edge of competition or the stiffness of authority, just quiet closeness. We sat back down on the bleachers, both of us still a little sweaty, my shirt clinging to my back. I stretched out my legs and leaned back, staring up at the high beams crossing the ceiling. Coach sat beside me again, this time without the usual space between us. His arm brushed mine. Neither of us moved. "I forgot how nice it is when the gym's empty," I said. He nodded. Yeah, no noise, no expectations, just you and the sound of the ball. And the kid you maybe shouldn't be sitting this close to, he said softly, turning to me. My breath hitched a little, but I didn't move away. I'm not a kid, I said, meeting his gaze. You know that. He looked at me a long moment. No, you're not. The air tightened again. Not in a bad way, just in that way, where you know something's about to shift. I'm not gonna lie and say this isn't complicated, he said. But I also can't lie and say I don't feel it. I was quiet for a moment. Then, what is it though? His hand flexed between us, fingers brushing my knee. I don't know, he said, but I felt more alive in the last hour than I have in months. That made something flutter in my chest. We were both just sitting there in this echoing gym, the lights humming, the world feeling 1,000 miles away. It didn't feel like real life. And at the same time, it felt more real than anything else ever had. People would talk, I said. People always talk. You could get in trouble. He looked away at that, jaw tightening slightly. Yeah. We both sat with that thought for a minute. Then he turned back to me and asked, do you want me to unlock the door? The way he said it, it wasn't a dismissal. It wasn't a test. It was permission. I could leave. He'd never mention it again. We'd go back to drills and film sessions and normalcy. Or, no, I said. He didn't move. I don't want to leave yet. I looked down at his hand, still resting near mine. So I moved my fingers, slow, unsure, and placed them over his. It wasn't bold. It wasn't dramatic, but it was everything. He looked down at our hands, then up at me. His eyes were softer now, open in a way I'd never seen them. And then, just like that, he leaned in. Not fast, not hungry, just slow, sure, steady. When his lips touched mine, it was quiet, it was careful, but it was real. I didn't think, I didn't flinch, I didn't panic, I just let it happen. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The kiss didn't last long. It wasn't some wild, breathless thing like I'd imagined 1,000 times in my head. It was soft, brief, like a question that had finally been asked and answered. When we pulled apart, we didn't speak right away. Coach kept his eyes on mine, like he was waiting for me to say something, or maybe just making sure I wasn't going to regret it. But I didn't, not even close. I wasn't expecting that, I said finally, voice low. He gave a small, crooked smile. Yeah, me neither. We both laughed, quietly, almost nervously, but the air between us was different now, lighter, charged in a way that made my skin buzz and my thoughts slow down. Coach leaned back again, his arm brushing against mine as he settled into the bench. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. Better than okay. Good, he said. Then, with a quick smirk, would have been awkward if you said no. I nudged his arm. You didn't exactly ask. Fair. The gym was quiet again. Just the soft hum of the lights above us and the occasional creak of the bleachers under our shifting weight. I've never done that, I admitted. Kissed someone? No, I said, a little laugh escaping me. Kissed a guy, especially not my coach. Yeah, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Kinda new territory for me too. I looked at him, surprised. Seriously? He nodded. I've been with guys, but never like this. Like what? He paused. Like, I'm not just trying to escape something. That hit harder than I expected. I looked away, staring out over the empty court. Do you regret it? I asked. Not even close, he said, but I'm not going to pretend this isn't messy. I nodded. Yeah, it is. Another pause. But I don't want to pretend anymore either, I added. Coach looked at me again, this time with something quieter in his expression. Not desire, not heat, just honesty. I can't promise anything, he said. Not yet. There's too much at stake. I swallowed. I get that. But I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen, he added, and I don't want to ignore whatever this is. I nodded again, slower this time. Same. He reached out again, not to kiss me this time, just to rest his hand lightly on my knee. It was steady, intentional, comforting. We stayed like that for a while, just two guys sitting on a gym bench, under the same harsh lights we practiced under every day, but somehow, nothing felt the same anymore. Eventually, he stood. I followed. He walked back to the gym door and looked at me over his shoulder. Ready? Yeah. He unlocked it, the sound echoing like thunder in the stillness. Before we stepped out, he turned back to me, hesitated for a second, then said quietly, "Be careful who you trust with this." I will. And if you ever need to talk about any of it, you come to me. Got it? Got it. He nodded. And then, like nothing had happened, we both stepped out into the hallway. The world didn't know anything had changed, but for me, it had. The hallway outside the gym was cool and dark, lined with vending machines humming quietly and lockers that hadn't seen students in hours. We didn't talk as we walked down the corridor, footsteps echoing off the linoleum. It felt like walking out of a dream and back into reality, but nothing about me felt the same. When we reached the end of the hallway, Coach stopped by the side exit. "This is where I go out," he said, his voice quieter now. "Yeah," I said, not sure why I suddenly felt nervous again. He looked at me like he was weighing something. Maybe risk, maybe timing. "You'll be all right?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, I think so." He opened the door halfway, the cool night air rushing in. Then, before stepping through, he turned back. "Hey." "Yeah?" "You played damn well today, even with everything going on." I felt myself smile. "Thanks, Coach." He hesitated for a beat, like he wanted to say something else, then gave me a small nod and slipped outside. The door clicked shut behind him, and I was alone. The walk back to my dorm was weird. Familiar sidewalks, the same few campus lights flickering, late-night sprinklers hissing across the quad. Everything looked the same, but it all felt different. Like I had this secret no one could see. Like something was blooming inside me, cautiously, quietly. I thought I'd feel scared. Instead, I felt something closer to peace, or maybe hope. The next morning, everything was back to normal. Mostly. Coach West was at practice, clipboard in hand, blowing the whistle, barking orders, same as always. If anyone had told me to guess whether he kissed a guy on the bleachers the night before, I'd have laughed in their face, but I knew better. So did he. And when our eyes met across the court, just for a second, I saw it, that flicker of something. Recognition. Memory. No one else seemed to notice. I kept my focus, didn't slip up in drills, didn't hover around him more than usual. We kept our space, kept things clean. But that night stayed with me, and I could tell it stayed with him too. We didn't talk about it again for a few days. Practice came and went, same routine, same energy. I started to wonder if he regretted it, or if I should. Maybe we both misread the moment. Then, after Friday's practice, I got a text from an unknown number. "You free tonight? Need to talk. W." Just the letter, but I knew exactly who it was. I met him at a little bar off campus. One of those quiet places with warm lighting and too much wood paneling. He was already at a booth when I walked in, wearing a plain dark jacket, sipping a Coke. He smiled when he saw me. Not the coach smile, a real one. "You made it," he said. "Wasn't sure if I should." "I'm glad you did." We sat for a moment in silence, the hum of low conversation around us. "I've been thinking about the other night," he said. "Me too." He looked at me, steady and calm. "I don't want to confuse you, Tyler, or make things harder than they already are." "You didn't," he nodded. "Good. But I don't want to lead you on either. I have to be careful. Not just for me, for you. I know. But if you want, we could figure this out. Slowly, carefully. He looked nervous when he said it, like he wasn't used to letting someone else in. Like he was trusting me not to break whatever fragile thing we'd stumbled into. I smiled. Yeah, I said, I'd like that. He exhaled, and something in his posture relaxed, like he'd been holding his breath for days. We talked for an hour. Nothing heavy, just music, movies, places we'd traveled. It wasn't about strategy or secrecy. It was just two people talking like normal. And when he walked me back to campus that night, he didn't kiss me. He didn't have to. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't hiding from anything. Weeks passed. You'd think things would get complicated fast. But weirdly, they didn't. Practice stayed the same. Coach West didn't give me special treatment. If anything, he was harder on me. Called me out in drills, made me run extra when my passes weren't sharp. To anyone watching, we were just coach and player. No one gave us a second glance. But underneath all that structure, there was something else building. Quiet moments between us. Small things no one would notice. The way he'd glance over when I nailed a three. The brief, lingering eye contact after a hard-fought scrimmage. The way he always stayed just a little longer after practice, waiting until I'd cleared the court. We didn't meet up often, maybe once every 10 days. No schedules, no plans. Just quiet messages. Free? Meet? Late gym? We kept it low, kept it ours. One night I got to the gym after hours. It was dark, mostly. Only one overhead light left on, casting a pool of warmth on the court. He was already there, sitting at center court with his back against the hardwood, legs stretched out. I walked over and dropped down beside him. Neither of us said anything for a bit. He reached over, offering me half of his protein bar. I took it. We chewed in silence for a while. Then he said, "You looked more confident this week." "Yeah?" He nodded. "It suits you." I thought about that. I think I just stopped hiding. At least a little. Doesn't feel so heavy when you stop pretending. "No," I said. "It doesn't." He looked at me, and I saw that quiet intensity again. The part of him that never really turned off. That discipline, that focus. But now it was directed at me, not the scoreboard. "What about you?" I asked. "You still hiding?" He was quiet for a second. Then, "I've been doing it so long, it feels like breathing. But yeah, I've started thinking about what it'd mean not to." I studied his face in the low light. He looked tired but calm. "What scares you the most?" I asked. "Losing everything," he said without hesitating. "The job. The respect. The control." I nodded. Then he turned the question on me. "You?" I exhaled. "People seeing me differently, like I'm suddenly less of what they thought I was." "Yeah," he said. "That one used to wreck me." "Used to?" He gave a small smile. "Until I realized the right people won't." That stuck with me. Later that night, we were still sitting on the gym floor, backs against the same wall, the clock on the scoreboard blinking silently. It was late, almost too late. Coach leaned his head back against the wall, eyes closed. And I watched him. His face softened when he wasn't paying attention. The furrow between his brows disappeared. The edges of his mouth relaxed. He looked younger, sadder, more human than I'd ever seen him during practice. "You ever think about just leaving it all behind?" I asked. He opened his eyes slowly. "Sometimes." "To do what?" "I don't know," he said. "Move somewhere warm. Open a gym. Coach kids. Drink coffee on the porch and stop living like I owe something to everyone but myself." "Sounds peaceful." He looked at me. "You'd visit?" he asked. I didn't look away. "Yeah." He smiled at that. And not the guarded smile I usually saw from him. A real one. Then, without thinking, I reached over and laced my fingers through his. He let me. It wasn't perfect. We didn't have answers. But we had this, and for now, that was enough. It happened during playoffs. Not the kiss. Not the conversation. Not the secret meetups under dim lights or early morning coffee runs when the world was still asleep. No, it was the way he looked at me when the buzzer went off. We'd just won the regional championship, everyone was screaming, guys dogpiling mid-court, jerseys soaked, bodies aching, and I, standing there, half in shock, chest heaving, turned toward the bench, and he was looking at me, not at the scoreboard, not at the crowd, just me. And that look, it said everything. Not good job, not you played your heart out. It was the look of a man who had seen me fight, fall, rise again, and who knew me completely. It only lasted a second, maybe not even that long, but it burned through me. That night, after the celebration died down, after the gym was quiet again and the lights were low, I stayed behind. I'd showered, changed, packed my gear, but something told me not to leave just yet. I walked the court one more time, hands in my hoodie pockets, letting my sneakers echo across the polished wood. When I got to the free throw line, I just stood there, silent, until I heard the door click shut behind me. I didn't have to look to know it was him. His footsteps were slower than usual. No clipboard, no whistle, just him. He walked until he was next to me and stopped. We stood side by side for a moment, staring out over the empty court. "Hell of a game," he said. "Yeah," I replied. "We played like a team tonight." "You led like one." I looked at him. "Only because you taught me how." He smiled, and for once, it didn't look like it hurt him to show it. Then, quietly, "I meant what I said, back then, about figuring this out." I nodded. "I know." He looked down for a second, then back up at me. "I don't want to be just a secret anymore." Something in me cracked at that. "You're not," I said. "Not to me." He reached for my hand. No hesitation this time. We stood there at center court, his fingers wrapped around mine, the gym silent and still. "I'm not asking you to come out," he said. "Not until you're ready. But I want you to know, when you are, I'll be there. Every step." I nodded, feeling that old tightness in my chest start to lift. "Same for you," I said. "Whenever you're ready." It didn't end in some dramatic reveal. No viral kiss on the court, no coming out speech in front of the team. But slowly, over time, things changed. We stopped hiding. Not loudly, not recklessly. Just honestly, guys started to notice that we lingered a little longer after practice. That he'd put a hand on my back sometimes. That our conversations weren't always about drills or stats or next week's game. Nobody said anything. Some of them just nodded. One of the guys, later that season, slapped me on the shoulder after a win and said, "You and coach, you're good for each other." I didn't know what to say, but he didn't wait for an answer. Months later, after the season ended, after classes wrapped, after the weather turned warm again, we went hiking together, just the two of us, out past the city, where the trails were quiet, and no one cared who held whose hand. At the summit, we sat on a rock, legs stretched out in the sun, water bottles sweating beside us. He turned to me, pulled off his sunglasses, and said, "I spent so long thinking I had to earn love by being perfect." I didn't say anything, just looked at him, waiting. "But you," he added, voice softer, "you made me realize I didn't have to." And then he kissed me. Not cautiously, not briefly, just honestly, like two people who found something real. Unexpected, impossible maybe, but real. And we stayed like that. Quiet, steady, warm in the sun, together.